Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is the first episode of a little mental health series thing that I want to do. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty triggered. I'm already naturally pretty sensitive when people aren't educated around mental health, and I really do want to educate people in a nice way. Oh, it just really triggers me when people say things that they shouldn't be saying, and especially when I think, it's 2019, you should know what things like depression are. You should be educated. You should know these things. It's happening all around us all the time, and you should know the appropriate responses to say to people when they're depressed or when they're anxious. And it's just not happening, and it really bothers me a lot that people aren't as aware as they should be, and people don't really care to be as aware as they should be, and that bothers me even more. I won't lie, I'm also slightly triggered because I sleep last night, and when I say I didn't sleep last night, I mean I didn't even sleep for 1 minute. Not 1 minute, not a single second, didn't even close my eyes, been awake the whole night. It took like 4 layers of makeup to make myself look alive and not like a zombie. And on top of that, I also haven't really slept properly since Sunday, and today's Friday. On top of having one full night of like absolutely no sleep, I also have had just one good night's sleep collectively over the whole week. And yes, that is a result of one of my mental illnesses. I am not crazy. I did not choose to stay awake all night. So please, let's stop acting like I'm crazy. So there are heaps of things that I want to touch on in this video, in upcoming videos. It was really hard for me to narrow down what I was going to speak about today. I could just give everyone all of the information in one go and just be done with it. It would make me feel so much better, because you kind of get on a roll and you start saying things, and you like one thing leads to another, and it's really hard for me to kind of not say everything at once. But I managed to kind of narrow down what I'm going to say. So I'm going to start by just giving you my own personal background in mental health and psychology, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the stigmas and misconceptions around mental health, mental illnesses, and then I'm going to give you the top things you should not say to someone with mental illness, a couple of alternative things you can say that would rather be helpful to the alternative that most of you say. So I'm going to kick this off firstly with a trigger warning. If you are sensitive in any way to any topics on mental health, then you've been warned. This is a broad spectrum conversation from now the whole way throughout on mental health. We aren't going to be going too dark, so I'm sure it will be fine. I think I just want to give a trigger warning to be safe. Easily offended, switch off, unsubscribe, go away, because you'll get offended a lot. And yeah, if you're not open-minded, then why are you here, really? I'm really not going to sugarcoat anything. I think people have been sugarcoating mental illness and mental health for a very long time, and it's clearly not doing the job. So I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to say it the way I think it is, and for the most part, the way it is. And if you don't like that, then I apologize. There's nothing I can do about it. That is completely your own problem. To start off with, my own personal experience. Yo, my mind is frazzled today. For anyone that's wondering, this is my 11th cup of coffee. That's probably partially the only reason I'm functioning right now. And I don't even know if I'm looking into the camera or not, because I'm blinded by the light that's behind the camera and the windows open. Like a psychology standpoint and an education standpoint, I am currently a psychology student, or studying to be I am studying to be a psychologist. There we go. And I'm not done. I'm not a qualified psychologist. This is not a professional opinion. Do not take this for gospel, please. You have been warned. It is just, I like to call it an educated opinion, because I'm educated in it. I forget words. I've got I know how to say like a whole 3 words right now. And then from a personal level, I've got quite the history, let me tell you. My chemical buildup of my brain is not fabulous. So firstly, I am genetically oh God, I don't actually know. Because of my genetics, I am more likely to have mental illness on a biological standpoint. Not be doing this today, I can't speak. It's in my genes, basically. So yeah, that first things first, that's that. I was then diagnosed with depression when I was 17 years old. Clinical depression, I had no idea I was depressed. I went to the doctor with a whole bunch of symptoms. I don't even know what I thought I had at the time, but I went to the doctor with a whole bunch of symptoms and he diagnosed me with depression. And I just remember crying for like 3 days because I really didn't think I was depressed and I didn't want to be depressed, but I was. Everything I've been diagnosed with over time, and then I'll do a proper video where I go really full on into each thing and illness and how they were treated, or if I still have them, or whatever. And then in my second year out of school, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and that was quite hectic and quite full on. I was actually in low level recovery clinic for depression, anxiety, stuff like that for a couple of weeks. So I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder then, which I still have. A year after that, in 2015, I was diagnosed. All of these are professional diagnoses, by the way. This is not me diagnosing myself. So a year later, in 2015, I was then officially diagnosed with bipolar type 1 disorder on top of the borderline, which was fun. Then in 2017, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. That is probably my worst still to date. I suffer really badly with anxiety, and that needs an entire video on its own. I was admitted to hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. That's how bad my anxiety was when I was first diagnosed. So I'm going to dive straight into the stigmas and misconceptions of mental health. But before I do so, I want to say the biggest stigma or the biggest problem around mental health is that people feel that they cannot speak about it for some reason, especially when it is affecting them or affecting someone they know. People often say that I speak too openly about it, or I give out too much information about my personal experiences with it, and I think that's bullshit, to be honest. The same way you would speak about having any other kind of chronic illness or cancer or anything like that, it's the same thing. There are millions of people suffering from mental illness. It is completely okay to speak about. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. We need to break the stigmas around it so that people can speak about it and people can reach out for help. The same way you can say you have a cold and you need to go to the doctor, you should be able to say that you have been diagnosed with depression and you are dealing with that and you are being medicated for it or being treated for it in whatever way. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm completely okay with speaking about it. I don't care what people think. I wish more people didn't care what other people thought. And yeah, so hopefully this just helps break some of those stigmas and misconceptions. I also want to add in that I firstly think that if you have not been diagnosed, you should not be classifying yourself with any kind of mental illness. If you think you are clinically depressed, you need to see a doctor and you need to be diagnosed. I think a lot of the stigma around mental illness comes from it being so largely dismissed, because everyone is depressed and everyone is anxious and everyone has anxiety, and that's not the case. Not everyone has it. There's a massive difference between being sad and being depressed. There's a massive difference between being worried and stressed and having anxiety, and this is very cutthroat. But if you have not been diagnosed, do not say you have mental illness, please. It is dismissive for those who do suffer, and it is also, for me, in my opinion, it is offensive to people that do suffer. You don't walk around saying you have cancer when you do not. Mental illnesses are not adjectives, so do not use them as an adjective. Just such a diverse topic in the mental health world specifically that it also needs its entirely own dedicated video, so I will do that as well. But just so that you're aware, maybe if you want to read up on it and educate yourself on it, maybe just Google why you shouldn't be using mental health as adjectives. There's a lot that goes into it. People don't realize that they shouldn't be doing it, and of course not everyone understands the misconceptions and the stigmas and the things they should be saying and shouldn't be saying, and that's why I wanted to make a mental health series, just so that I can educate people on not only on different illnesses, but on different sort of facets of the mental health world, because it really is so multifaceted, or it really is so diverse, and it's worth educating yourself. It's worth listening to. It's worth knowing these things. Again, sorry, I keep having to check if it's actually filming. Okay, so some common misconceptions. The first one is, we do not want to be psychotic or depressed. We did not ask for this. It kind of implies when people say, oh, well, you're depressed and you have depression but you're not really getting better. You don't want to get better. You want to be depressed. No, we do not want to be depressed. I don't want to be depressed. No one wants to be depressed. It's not as simple as simply being depressed or not being depressed. It's not a conscious choice that has been made to be sick. Like you wouldn't choose to have any kind of chronic illness, or you wouldn't choose to have a cold. We do not choose this for ourselves. Another massive misconception is that people with mental illness are dangerous or violent, especially when you're going towards like schizophrenia and sometimes even bipolar and narcissism and stuff. For the most part, most people are not dangerous or violent, and if they are normally getting treatment and being kept away from situations where they could potentially be dangerous or violent in. Not everyone that has mental illness associated with them is a threat to you, and treating them like they are a threat is really just kind of segregating them, and that kind of makes the situation worse. Another misconception is that you are either mentally ill or you are mentally healthy. And that is definitely not the case. Mental health or mental wellness is a continuum, and everyone falls somewhere on that spectrum. For example, excuse me, only 17% of people are considered to be in optimum mental health. So that doesn't mean that they have a mental illness. It just means that they fit lower down on the spectrum. They may be battling in some areas. Their mental health might not be great, but they are not necessarily clinically depressed, or they don't necessarily have any mental illness per se. Another massive misconception is that mental illness is a sign of weakness, and I have no idea where this came from. It goes so far beyond like the idea of a positive mind or a strong mind. For a person in like a deep depressive episode, sometimes simply getting out of bed or showering in 3 days is a massive struggle, let alone positive thoughts or going to work or functioning like a normal human being. The chemicals in their brain are not there to assist them with that, and that does not make them weak. They are just sick. The same way you cannot function normally when you have a cold, it is exactly the same. Another misconception goes one of two ways, and that is either you can prevent mental illness or you can't prevent mental illness. Both are right and wrong, because some things are preventable, some things are not. For example, clinical depression, if it's in your genes, you can be the most positive person, you can be in good health physically, you could have a really great career and great support system around you, and you can still be clinically depressed. Basically, your life can be perfect and you can still have depression. Sometimes it's just not as simple as preventing it, but there are things like looking after your health, having a good support system around you, and having had a good life, things that can prevent you from becoming depressed, because clinical depression isn't the only kind of depression. You can become environmentally depressed or depressed as a result of situations and traumas that have happened in your life. So it's highly dependent. You can definitely try and prevent it, but it's not a guarantee that you can prevent it from happening. And another misconception is that mental illness is forever, and that is not necessarily the case again. Some mental illnesses are not curable, like schizophrenia. They do not go away. However, most mental illnesses are treatable. So with medication, for example, if you have bipolar disorder, you can go on mood stabilizers and different treatment options and go for therapy, and you can live your life like a completely normal human being, with aids basically helping you along the way. The same with depression. Depression doesn't necessarily last forever, but you can be on medication for really extended periods of time. It's really, really dependent. Things you should not say to someone that is suffering from mental illness. And I cannot stress this enough. Please don't say these things, please. For the most part, hurtful more than anything. Some of them are offensive, some of them are dismissive. For the most part, they are hurtful. They make you feel misunderstood. The first one is get busy and distract yourself. Don't say that. It's just not going to work at all in any situation. Getting busy and distracting yourself is not going to help. If you have anxiety or you are depressed, you can get busy and you can distract yourself, but when you stop being busy and you stop distracting yourself, the problem is still there. So you are still missing something, whether it be therapy or medication or proper coping mechanisms, whatever the case is, a completely ineffective method. It's completely temporary. It's not a good coping mechanism, and it's really not a good suggestion. And if you have been in a place where you have suffered from depression or anxiety, you'll know that it doesn't help. You will know that it's one of the most annoying things that someone can say. Another one is, do you want to get better? Yeah, I do, actually. For the most part, it's really just hurtful because it implies that, you don't want to get better, and it's just not the case. It's a process, and it's a journey to recovery. It just hurts, really. There's not much more to it than it's a hurtful statement. Change your attitude. Thank you. I didn't think of that. For the most part, this doesn't work for a lot of disorders like ADHD and OCD and bipolar disorder. It naturally just won't work for them. And secondly, it's hard enough for a high-functioning, mentally stable human being to change their attitude. Imagine how hard it is for someone that's depressed or someone that is mentally ill. Stop focusing on the bad. Just no, it doesn't help. You have everything you need to get better. Firstly, that might not always be the case. So yeah, in your eyes, I might have everything I need to get better, but I might need medication to get better, and I might not be taking my medication, I might not be on medication, I might not be getting therapy. Sometimes we don't have the tools that we need to get better. Just because we have a job or a stable environment doesn't mean we have the means to get better. It also implies that you're not doing enough to get better, which hurts. Basically, that's pretty much the be all and end all of it. It's a hurtful statement. Don't say it. This is my favorite one. You can snap out of it. Everyone has been there at some point in their lives. No. Everyone has not been there at some point in their lives. Occasional sadness, or even being exceptionally sad, is not the same thing as wanting to die. Occasional sadness or very deep sadness is also not the same thing as being in a hopeless pit of despair where it has become so dark that you can't even see the light. It's really not the same thing. I've been deeply sad and I have been depressed. It is not the same thing. Not everyone has experienced it. It's exceptionally dismissive, and it makes you not want to talk about it. For me at least. The second you say that to me, I no longer want to speak to you about what I'm going through, because firstly, you don't understand. And you are basically, you saying that is you telling me you don't understand. You are dismissing my feelings and you're not prepared to understand. You just feel so misunderstood, and it's not nice. That's definitely the worst one. Really avoid that. I can think of right now would be just pray about it. The power of prayer is very significant for those who believe in it. And you can say to someone, do you mind if I pray for you if you're religious? But not everyone is religious, and often things like depression lead even those who are religious to dark places where they don't have faith, and telling them to just pray about it makes them feel kind of like hopeless. And it's not offering any kind of support. It's like saying, I hear you, but ask God to help you. I don't want to help you. I think more so than that, the fact that you don't always know someone's religious standpoints, I would just avoid that completely. Yeah.
Hello. I, for some reason, thought that I was done filming when I wasn't. There were 3 things that I wanted to add in that are better substitutes to say in place of all the things that you shouldn't say when you are having a conversation with someone about their mental health. So I'll just pop them on a little slide and start them in now. I also very smartly didn't film an outro, so thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you gained something from it. If there's anything specific you want me to do next, then please let me know. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.